And when you go to, if you go there, so you will see that in front of some of the names there is a small button like asterisk, and it means that the body was identified.
Thank you for your service. Where are you from? Okay.
Where are you?
South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service.
Verity, and he was an airman who happened to crash with his plane behind the enemy lines as the Germans anticipated this would be coming. They have flooded vast areas, and very likely this guy Wesley has drowned. And famous 101st Airborne Division, the so-called Screaming Eagles, and it's always very moving. I'm sorry that I'm repeating this, but if you can not only learn the story but also see how the person has looked like.
This obviously is a very holy place, any place where people who served their country and in a sense saved humanity fell is a holy place. So we wanted to add our own portion to the ceremony for really everybody here, including the 200 or more Jews. As was pointed out, some of the people buried here may very well have been Jews but did not identify as such because it may have been dangerous for them to do so depending on their circumstances. And I know that many people here have a personal connection to relatives and others who fought and died in the wars, and therefore it's a special meaning for us who our greatest midah in Judaism really is hakarat hatov, to recognize the good that God does for us and that others do for us as well. So I decided that I would actually wear the uniform of my father. It was one of the few things that he left to me. He served as a reconnaissance photographer in the Pacific Theater, 3.5 years in the Philippines, fighting against the Japanese, and was also wounded, received the Purple Heart, and represented to me the virtue of courage and the idea of standing up proud for your country.
I was thinking, in the Talmud, there is a debate as to what is the most important pasuk, verse, in the Torah. One sage says the obvious, love thy neighbor as thyself. And the other sage says something very strange. Zeh Sefer Toldos Adam. This is the book of the generations of man. You might wonder, how can that match up against love thy neighbor as thyself? The great sage, Rabbi Aaron Kotler, once said a profound thought. He said that in the Talmud, it says that God judges man on 3 occasions. On Yom Adin, during the high holidays, on when a person dies, and the 3rd time just before Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead. So he said, why the first 2 are logical, the 3rd is absolutely illogical. What do you have to? You already judged him when he died. What are you judging him again? So Rav Aaron Kotler answered, let's say in our tradition, Rashi lived hundreds of years ago, but every day a person is learning Rashi hundreds of years later, thousands of years later. The residuals, the Almighty applies not only your life's achievement, but the residuals that your life's achievement brought to bear. And that was the reason why you were judged just before the coming of the dead. So in the case of Rashi, we would say for hundreds of years, no one has forgotten him. The people buried on this cemetery, Jews and non-Jews, for thousands of years, people will remember them because they represent Zeh Sefer Toldos Adam. This is the book of the generations of man. They saved not only their generation, they saved our future and our continuity. And we owe them everything. And therefore we're here to pay our respects and admiration to those who gave their lives that we and our families and future generations may live.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Amtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim Utorim, Kezor Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmot, Chayalim B'chayalot, שלחמו נגד הרוצחים האויבים במלחמת העולמי השנייה כאן בצרפת ובאירופה וביפן בעבור שאנחנו מתפללים בעד הזכרת נשמתם לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרור החיים בית נשמתם, אדוני הוא נחלתם, ונתנוחו בשלום משכבם, ונאמר Amen. May God remember the souls of the holy and pure soldiers, men and women, brave defenders of peace and freedom, who gave their lives in order to defend and protect humanity in the time of World War II. They were lovely and amiable in their lives and are not pardoned in their deaths. Swifter than eagles, stronger than lions, these courageous ones fought against those who would deny the human rights of the world. May God remember them for good, along with the rest of those holy ones who gave their lives and who sacrificed for the good of others. May their place of rest be in paradise. In their merit, may we dwell securely in our land. The Almighty should grant peace, so that none may tremble and no sword shall pass through the land. And may God spread His Sukkot Shalom over all of His people, over the land, and give us a life of health and happiness, welfare, and ultimately of brotherhood between men. Amen.
Amen.
Annie the Kaddish.
יסקדש ויסקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
ויאמר דברך עושה והמחמך עושה בחייכנו וימחנו וחי לכל בית ישראל. בגלה זמן קריב ואמרו אמן. אמן. יהי שמי רבא מבורך לעולם המאיה, יזברך וישתבח וישפועה וישרומם וישנשא ויסדר ויסלב ויסלו שמי קושר בריחו לעולם מכל בחסה ושירסה כשבחסה ונחמסה תאמיר רמה ואמור אמן. יהי שלום רבא ושמי לחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמור אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
June 7th,
Yeah,
they took
Just
to
a-
get here.
yeah.
June 7th. It took one day.
But
to get
from here, it's not impressive. It's when
Right.
you're down on the beach,
I know.
and then you look up.
I've been there. We can't
You've done
go
it,
there.
and you see
Oh,
where
we
they
are.
threw grappling irons to climb up, with soldiers with rifles shooting down, like picking off pigeons.
Right.
That's John.
And machine guns.
They say on average 1 in 3
Right.
made it.
So
up
they
the
say-
hill. 1 in 3.
Right.
Maybe.
So when you're on the boat, when they're on the boat coming over, they said look to your left and look to your right because one of you won't be here.
Yeah, that's it. Yes. My battalion, the East Yorkshires, came to the beach here, and they had an officer called Bangor King. I'll explain to you another time why they called him Bangor. But he was a great guy, and he stood at the end of the ship as they were docking, and he quoted from Shakespeare, once more into the breach, the whole of Shakespeare. Now the tragedy, he was a most wonderful officer. I loved the man. When did he get killed? The day before the war ended. His
7th.
jeep was going over a little bridge.
It hit.
Mine
Right.
blew him and the driver, both killed immediately. But he was a great guy. He's the great thing. I told you the story about the Jewish boy going back to his home and finding the silver, the bechers, etc. He was the officer who gave him his jeep, said go find where your parents lived. And never he got killed the day before the war ended. Very sad. So many stories. Yeah. Holland, yes. Into Holland, Belgium, Holland and Germany. Finished the war in Osnabrück. I was sitting next to a tank listening to the news, well listening to Fawcett's Favourites records that parents and friends from home were sending messages to their sons in the battlefield. Suddenly broke in the middle of a song, so we've got some news for you. Peace has been signed. We broke open whatever bottles we could find, celebrated. But then the real thought was, yes, that's the end of the war in Europe, but what about the boys who are in the Far East still fighting? And I had 2 cousins in the Far East. One was in Singapore, was captured by the Japanese. He died malnutrition and everything else, starvation, in Changi jail in Singapore. And another cousin I lost was in a famous British regiment, the Duke of Wellington's it was called, a famous infantry regiment. He was killed crossing the Irrawaddy, taken by the Japanese to Burma, and is buried in Rangoon. And I've got photographs. My neighbour went on a trip, a river cruise, and I said, are you stopping in Burma? He said, it'll be 2 days. I told him the story. I gave him a photograph, and he went to the grave. He found it for me. He took photographs of it at the present day.
That's cool.
This is something, and really, as I said before, wherever I go in the world, I have to go to a cemetery. Now it's part of a holiday. It sounds ridiculous, but we mustn't forget. And every year I go on the ex-servicemen's parade, Ajax, we hold in London, the centre of London. And this year will be, please God I shall be able to get there, will be the 63rd attendance on the parade. In the early days we had 3,500–4,000 veterans marching. Now unfortunately I'm one of the youngest, we're only in hundreds. And we have a ceremony there. And that's our aim is to remember those who didn't come back. And I only hope that the world learns a lesson, but unfortunately I think it's a crazy world we're living in with 3 crazy world leaders. I don't think we've got much chance. I worry not about my generation anymore, but my grandchildren's generation. Please God, they should remember, and it should be a signal: no more wars, no more, to hope. Thank you.